Welcome to the Oneida Herkimer Madison Boces online training for the Dignity for All Students Act, sometimes referred to as the Dignity Act or by the acronym Dasa. This is an annual state-mandated training for all school employees, including but not limited to teachers, administrators, monitors, aides, bus drivers, coaches, custodians, cafeteria staff, and hall monitors. The objective of this training is to refresh the tenets of the Dignity Act, and for those who this may be their first time viewing this training, bring an awareness to the scope and purpose of the Dignity Act. The Dignity for All Students Act, or DASA, was established to protect all students who attend public schools in New York State from aggressive actions that can be considered harassment, bullying, and/or discrimination. The Dignity Act was signed into law by former Governor David Paterson and became effective on July 1st, 2012. The Dignity Act was amended in July of 2013 to include cyberbullying, or acts of harassment, bullying, and/or discrimination that take place in the form of electronic communication through devices such as cell phones, tablets, gaming systems, and other ways that people could use social media to harass, bully, or discriminate against others. The Dignity Act applies to incidents that occur on school property, for instance, in a school building, on an athletic playing field, on the playground, in a parking lot, on a school bus, or off campus, at any school-sponsored activity or event that occurs off school property. They can include, but they're not limited to, field trips, athletic events, and any other school-sponsored function. The Dignity Act also applies to off-campus behavior that includes electronic communication over the internet and through the World Wide Web, where such acts create or would foreseeably create a risk of substantial disruption within the school environment, where it is foreseeable that the conduct, the threats, the intimidation, or abuse might reach school property. The purpose of the Dignity Act is to foster civility in public schools and to prevent and prohibit conduct which is inconsistent with the school's educational mission. New York State's Dignity Act seeks to provide the state's public elementary and secondary school students with a safe and supportive environment, free from harassment, bullying, and/or discrimination on school property, when traveling on a school bus, or off campus at any school-sponsored functions. The Dignity Act focuses on the prevention of harassment and discriminatory behaviors through the promotion of educational measures meant to positively impact school culture and climate. The creation and maintenance of a positive school climate includes an understanding of the school community's role in providing opportunities to promote and model positive behaviors by all members of the school community. Under the Dignity Act, bullying and cyberbullying are prohibited. This applies to behaviors that occur between student to student or between a school employee to a student, on school property, at a school function, or off campus, such as an athletic event or a field trip. Under the Dignity Act, all schools must include safe and responsible use of the internet and electronic communications. The Dignity Act does not protect staff from student behaviors that may be perceived as bullying or harassment. Many of those are covered under the school district's Code of Conduct. All student instruction should support the development of a school climate free of harassment, bullying, and discrimination. Instruction should include components on civility, citizenship, and character education. All school employees are required to become aware of the provisions and understand the Code of Conduct policy. School employees are also required to understand the reporting procedures of the district, including the identification of the Dignity Act Coordinator, or DAC, the location of the reporting form, and the obligation to report any incidents of alleged harassment, bullying, and or discrimination, either witnessed by or brought to their attention. The Dignity Act requires every public school in New York State to collect and report data on an annual basis of material incidents of harassment, bullying, and or discrimination to the New York State Ed Department. The Dignity Act requires that the Code of Conduct include provisions prohibiting discrimination and harassment, as well as to address remedial responses to discipline, and place the focus on correcting the reasons why the bullying, the harassment, or the discrimination has occurred. Schools are encouraged, when appropriate, to use a wide range of intervention measures to address the issues at hand, including but not limited to restorative practices, conflict resolution, peer mediation, and counseling. These are to put in place rather than to over-rely on exclusionary methods of discipline, such as suspension. Bullying has been described as an unwanted aggressive behavior that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. The behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. And bullying generally involves the following characteristics: an imbalance of power. Students who bully others use their power, such as physical strength, access to embarrassing information, or popularity to control or harm other students. Power imbalances can change over time and in different situations, even if they involve the same people. The intent to cause harm. Determining the intent of an individual who demonstrates bullying or harassing behaviors may be difficult. The perception of the person who is the target of those behaviors should be considered, as well as the intent of the aggressor and the impact that it may have on the target. Repetition. These behaviors, these bullying behaviors, generally happen more than once, or have the potential to happen more than once. And they can happen more than once throughout the school, in the cafeteria, in the gym, in the hallway, in the bathroom. And they can include cyberbullying, where the bullying and harassing behaviors don't stop when the school bell rings. Rather, they can continue for 24/7 through the internet, through social media sites, and through any other means of electronic communication that students may be using. Not every act should be considered to be a bullying act. Some acts may be conflict or disagreements, but by reporting, the investigation will come to the bottom of what happened through the facts, through the interviewing of witnesses, and come to the conclusion whether the act was founded as a material incident of bullying, whether it was unfounded, meaning the information maybe was a conflict between two students, or there just wasn't enough information to make a determination at this time, and further investigation is required. Cyberbullying is defined as electronic communication that takes place using technology, such as cell phones, laptops, tablets, gaming systems. It can include social media sites. It can include text messages. It can include chat rooms and over websites. Unlike traditional bullying, cyberbullying crosses all geological boundaries. Cyberbullying allows an aggressor to cloak his or her identity, and the targets may not know who they are. Administrators have to be aware of the impact that cyberbullying may have on the target as well as on the climate of the school. We look at bullying as it relates to normal conflict, and on each column you can see some of the differences between the two. What we look for is, was there any remorse from the aggressor? Did they look to solve the problem? Did they have anything that they can become part of a solution to end the situation that is happening? And most importantly, do they really wear the bullying behavior as a badge of honor? And some bullying can come in different ways. It can be verbal, where it's name-calling, teasing, inappropriate sexual comments, taunting, and even threatening to cause harm. It could be social, where spreading rumors about someone can happen either in a face-to-face situation throughout the school or over the World Wide Web. Excluding others on purpose, telling other students not to be friends with someone, and embarrassing someone in public. And then there's the physical, what we most likely are looking at, what bullying is. And it could be the hitting, the punching, the shoving, the kicking, spitting on someone, pushing, or taking or breaking someone's personal property. The impact on bullying is great and lasts well after the school day is over. In fact, the impact of a bullying situation can whittle away someone's self-esteem and confidence, and impact not only their learning within the school, but their ability to thrive and live up for their potential when they are in the community. According to the Center for Disease Control, Preventing Youth Violence in 2017, 1 out of 5 students are bullied. And every 7 seconds a child is bullied, depending on the age group. Up to 43% of students say they have been digitally harassed or cyberbullied. Many students may stay home from school, missing the opportunities and benefit of an education because they are afraid of their either physical or emotional safety. According to the Center for Disease Control and the Cyberbullying Research Center, students who are bullied are at a risk for feeling depression, anxiety, and isolation, low self-esteem, poor school adjustment, sleep difficulties, physical illness, and even suicidal thoughts can also be attributed to the impact that bullying can have on another person. The targets of bullying may be afraid to go to school, ride the bus, use the bathroom, or even be afraid to participate in extracurricular activities after school. Understanding and educating the school community on the impact that harassment, bullying, and/or discrimination may help create an empathetic response and help encourage students to interrupt the bullying cycle and report to the staff when alleged incidents of bullying, harassment, and/or discrimination are either witnessed or heard about. The Dignity Act includes protected classes. These are students who are more than likely to be targets of this type of behavior. It's important that we become to anyone who could be sensitive to this type of harassing, bullying, or discriminatory behaviors. And this list that we see here, the race, the color, someone's weight, their national origin, their ethnic group, their religion, a religious practice, a disability, someone's sexual orientation, gender identity, or sex, are not all inclusive. Anyone who lacks the self-esteem or power can be the target of bullying, harassment, and/or discrimination. When we think about signs that a child is being bullied, think about how it can impact both the emotional and the physical health of the student. Although the signs and symptoms of the impact can vary from student to student, an awareness of changes in behavior or mood are essential to knowing your students and knowing how they change throughout the school year. You can look at this list on this slide here and see some of the issues that students may face. unexplainable injuries, loss of property, or damage to property. Having headaches or stomach aches to keep you out of school and to keep you from going to school or school functions. And then at the worst, declining grades and absenteeism. And there may be many other signs, but if you witness or are provided information regarding a student being bullied, you must report to the Dignity Act coordinator. Remember that the tenet of the Dignity Act is that every student attending a public school in New York State have the same opportunities and benefit of an education. Continuing on signs that a child is being bullied. Understand that as you know your students from the day one, as you go through September, as you're going through the winter, maybe looking in after breaks, and then going through the spring and into the summer, you need to find a way to form relationships with your students. Someone that they can trust within the building that they can confide in. Someone that they know will not pass judgment on them and will follow through on what they talk about. Forming a relationship is very important, not only for a student to feel that they have a connection to the school community, but it also improves the climate of the school, and it also sends a message that this type of behavior is neither tolerated nor ignored. And it gives the student an ally in the school of someone that they can depend on. Another person in the school is going to be the Dignity Act coordinator, and it changes from building to building. The Dignity Act coordinator is required under the Dignity Act, where each building should have at least one, and sometimes it's a team of people. The Dignity Act coordinator, or DAC, is designated by the school board. The Dignity Act coordinator must be available to students and other employees for consultation and advice as needed. The Dignity Act coordinator should have a designated email address as well as their contact information posted in high traffic locations of all school buildings, including hallways, entranceways, the office, by the bathrooms, near the cafeteria, even by the bus. In the event that a Dignity Act coordinator vacates their position, another school employee shall be designated for an interim appointment as the DAC, pending approval by the leaving DAC as well as the Board of Education. And this needs to take place within 30 days of the date that their position was vacated. In the event that a DAC is unable to perform their duties for an extended period of time, then another school employee shall be immediately designated as the interim appointment of the DAC, pending the return of the original DAC or Dignity Act coordinator to their duties. The Dignity Act coordinator must be thoroughly trained to handle human relations in the areas of race, color, weight, national origin, ethnic group, religion, religious practice, disability, sexual orientation, gender, and sex. The Dignity Act coordinator will conduct interviews and investigate each reported incident promptly and thoroughly. Retaliation is prohibited against anyone making a report or assisting with an investigation. The investigation shall include separately interviewing all those involved, including the target, the aggressor, and any witnesses. The Dignity Act coordinator is required to notify appropriate law enforcement when they believe that any of the actions constitutes criminal conduct. In the event that an alleged incident of bullying, harassment, and/or discrimination is founded to be a material incident, a prompt plan for change shall be implemented. This plan can include providing resources to outside agencies for counseling, resources to support students within the school building, and resources for the family of both the target and the aggressor. In addition, the Dignity Act coordinator at each school will regularly report data trends of the reports to the superintendent. A good practice may be to complete these each semester to look what areas that we can improve on and look for certain areas that we may need support to help the school community understand their role in performing within the school as a student and increasing and maintaining a positive school climate within that building. The Dignity Act coordinators have posters. This is an example of a poster that one might see in an elementary school. Remember, in high traffic areas. And this poster here is more appropriate for maybe a middle or a high school. And you can see that we want to really ingrain in the school community to talk to a trusted adult. And it's very important that we look at the relationships we build within the school, within the student body, and within the school community. When we're reporting an incident or have reasonable cause to believe that a student has been subject to harassment, bullying, and or discrimination, we must, in good faith, report to the Dignity Act coordinator. An oral report must be reported within 1 school day or 24 hours. A written report is required within 2 school days or 48 hours. Once an oral report is done and a written report has been submitted to the DAC or designee, an investigation will follow. Investigations are confidential. All information is protected as a student record. And we must also be aware that the investigation and all the parts of the investigation should not be discussed in an open forum throughout the school, especially on social media. The Dignity Act coordinator will lead or supervise that investigation, and information on the report should include incidents of the exact words that were spoken at the time, witnesses that were in the area, including staff, the time of the incident, the location of the incident, and any action that you may have taken when you're intervening. All employees should be considered to be a mandated reporter, and if you witness or receive information about a student potentially being bullied, harassed, or discriminated against, a report should be made as best practice. When we look at this timeline, we just take a look at how it's happening. A report is made verbally within 24 hours of the incident, and within 48 hours of an incident, a written report is completed and submitted. The investigation process begins to ensure the safety of the students, to eliminate the hostile environment where the incident occurred, and to put any resources in place to ensure the emotional and physical safety of all those involved. The investigative process continues, and it can include interviews, fact-checking, and documentation. And as the investigation concludes, we see that the incident was either founded, where it actually happened and is reportable as a material incident to the state. It was unfounded, where maybe it was a conflict or disagreement between the parties, or there just wasn't enough information and further investigation needs to occur. You know, we talked a lot about what a material incident is, and I'm going to read this slide verbatim. A material incident is defined as a single incident or a series of incidents where a student is subjected to discrimination or harassment by a student and or employee on school property or at a school function that creates a hostile environment by conduct with or without physical contact and or verbal threats, intimidation, or abuse that is such a severe or pervasive nature that has or would have the effect of unreasonably and substantially interfering with a student's educational performance, opportunities or benefits, or mental, emotion, and or physical well-being, or reasonably causes or would reasonably be expected to cause a student to fear for his or her physical safety. It can also occur off campus, and we need to understand the off-campus standard for that. As we look into FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, It's a law that protects the privacy of student educational records. The law applies to all schools that receive funds under an applicable program of the U.S. Department of Education. Generally, schools must have written permission from the parent or eligible student in order to release any information from a student's record. When the investigation is completed, we need to take prompt action to end the harassment, bullying, and or discrimination. We eliminate any hostile environment. We prevent reoccurrence of the behavior. We ensure the safety of all students who are targeted. And remember that retaliation. Remember the follow-up needs to include whether someone who was part of that investigation is being retaliated against, whether because they made a report or whether they were part of the investigative process of interviews. We need to work to create a more positive school culture and climate. And again, the follow-up is important for ongoing support. This concludes the training on the Dignity for All Students Act, or the Dignity Act, or Dasa. As school staff, you have a role to play in preventing and reporting bullying. By modeling how to treat others with kindness and respect, we start to become role models within our school. And as a result, students may start to mimic our behavior, and we may start to create that positive climate where everyone in the school feels like they belong, where the educational process is happening, and where issues of bullying, harassment, and or discrimination are neither tolerated nor ignored.